subjective, it is actually both. So, for example, when if somebody slips and falls and they have an injury. Now, objectively, they have an injury because of which they may have to walk with a limp or they can't run. That's objective. But if that person is an athlete whose career is running, then the problems that come will be much, much more. Isn't it? Now, we could say that there's an objective harm to them caused by their fall. Because they cannot compete, they cannot win, they cannot earn money, whatever. But then two athletes may face a similar injury. Now one may be frustrated, the other may be devastated, the other may go into depression. So two people face the same problems. For both of them, objectively, it is a serious problem. But one person may get more traumatized than the other person. So there is an objective side to any problem that we face. But along with that, there is a subjective side to it. So when we look at this, generally speaking, as we are talking about specific incidents where instead of somebody falling down, somebody is pushed and they fell down and got injured. Then one more dynamic comes in. When we face some pain, there is the objective reality of the pain. But how much is the impact of the pain on us? That is one thing which can be subjective. But the other thing can be subjective is, what is the motive of the other person? Did that person push me accidentally? Or did that person push me intentionally? That will determine how we respond, how much we get agitated, and how much mental space it will occupy for us. So if we consider these two incidents, once we get the projector function, we'll write and draw something and explain. But till then, we'll consider two incidents. One is Ram being exiled by Kaikai. And the second is Wali getting trapped. Being trapped or getting trapped in the cave by Sugri. So, can we just decrease the AC slightly?
Yes.
So, the situation is that most of you know the incident, but I will just go over both the incidents to broadly understand the context. For us, many times, the impact of an incident is dependent on the expectation associated with it. Like if you want to have a birthday party for someone. Now, if it's a surprise birthday party, many times we say it's a surprise, but it's not a surprise for the other person. They're expecting it. So if there's an expectation and there's no party, there's frustration, there's anger. But there's no expectation, there's a party, there's a great joy. Isn't it? So often the impact of a situation depends on how much is the expectation associated with it. How much is the situation according to expectation, or how much is against the expectation. Sometimes it can be better than expectation, sometimes it can be worse than expectation. So, if something just goes along expectation, then the emotion is not that much. We may be happy, we expected a party, we got a party. But it may not be like a great happiness. If it's way, way better than what you expected, it will be wonderful. So, Lord Ram was a prince and he was on the path to becoming the king. And at that time, when what would be one of the happiest moments of his life, when a major transition is going to happen, this was what he had been groomed for, this was what he had himself prepared for. And when that was about to happen, at that moment, suddenly, it was all taken away from him. And it is not just that he was made like second in command. Like a player is expecting to become the captain of the team. And everybody has announced that he's going to be captain. tomorrow the selection team has met, the selection team has told the captain, told the player, has to announce to everyone, and then in the middle of the night, say some politics happens, and not only is that player not made the captain, that player is dropped from the team, and not only dropped from the team, that player is banned from playing cricket. So what happened overnight? How could you do something like this? To take the situation and take it many times worse. That's what happens to Lord Ram. The previous night he's preparing to become the king, and then suddenly he's told that he has to go on exile. Now, exile is something which we can't imagine in today's world. Now, there is no such thing. There's no exile as a punishment in today's world. Why? Because there is no forest which is not under any kingdom like that. The closest we have is deportation. Deportation is where you go from the place where you are in to some other your own kingdom. But in a way put in jail. In many ways, exile was considered worse than jail. Because at least in jail, there is some security, there are some basic amenities to take care of oneself. Very low, but they are there. So, in the Ramayana itself, it describes that exile is the worst of punishments, just one level below execution. Execution, your life is taken away. Exile is everything except your life is taken away. So, it was a terrible punishment. Well, it was not even a punishment because he had not done anything wrong. But it was a terrible suffering imposed upon him. And now when this happened, what was worse about it was that it all happened through a family member. The Ramayana and the Mahabharata are very much, they are dramas, but the Ramayana is much more like a family drama. The Mahabharata is more like both have action in it. And the Mahabharata also has a lot of action, relationships and families. But then there are multiple dynasties. The scale is much bigger in the Mahabharata in many ways. But either way, it was his own stepmother who did this. And it was not even expected. Because they didn't have any animosity among them. There was a little bit of tension between the queens because they were all rivals in some small ways. But their overall family was quite happy. So when this happened, this could have been devastatingly painful. Would have been. Now, this is one situation. We'll come back to the situation. But what we can understand is, it could be seen as an act of betrayal. That from inside the family itself. It's like if our equals, if some siblings, some cousins do something bad. That's still terrible, but it's understandable. But if somebody who is an elder, who is meant to be a protector, that person does something like that, it is far more painful. In the last 10 years, I have been traveling outside India, almost 26 months every year in America, other Western countries, and traveling, and I have interacted with a lot of local people also. So I'm recognizing so much of how people are affected by childhood trauma. Sometimes there might be a negligent parent, sometimes there might be some other elder who is a bit abusive. Should I make it white on black?
Yeah.
we are trying to broadly the topic we are discussing is dealing with suffering. Not just suffering, but suffering that is caused by others to us. So when we are dealing with such suffering, I discussed about two main things. One is, I say someone hurts us. They hurt us. So two things we consider. One is the impact on us. And the other is the motive of the other person. So these two are often subjective, in the sense that we have to evaluate what is the motive, why did the other person do it, what were they thinking, and how much am I suffering because of this. That impact comes on us. So when we try to practice spirituality, it is not just about chanting Hare Krishna and coming to some satsang and doing some puja. Yes, all that is important. But along with, but what the result of that is that it helps us get a greater perspective, a better clarity to see situations. Life will always have its ups and downs. But sometimes our mind can make these very extreme. It can make us go way up and way down. And that's how sometimes we may overreact to certain situations. So let's look at the other situation and I'll continue the analysis of the situation. So now we consider Vali and Sugriva. Vali and Sugriva were brothers, and not just brothers, they were close friends. And not just close friends, they were also comrades in war. They had fought many wars together, and Vali was definitely stronger than Sugriva. But Sugriva was no ordinary person. And there was this particular demon Mayavi who had challenged Kishkinda. And Vali and Sugriva came out to challenge him, to accept the challenge. Vali was going to accept the challenge. But Sugriva just wanted to make sure that there are no other demons who are there with him who might ambush Vali. And Mayavi ran away, seeing both of them coming, and he ducked into a cave. And Vali went inside the cave and told Sugriva, wait outside. And Vali went in and went on. Sugriva waited for a long, long time. And there was no sound coming from there. No sign of anything. And finally, he heard the screaming of the demon. But he didn't hear any sound from Vali. And he concluded with a heavy heart that somehow Vali had been killed. And then he decided that if this demon is killed, Vali must be extremely powerful. Very difficult for me to stop him. And if he kills me, then he will go and destroy our entire kingdom. To protect my kingdom, let me trap that demon. And he got a huge boulder and covered that cave. And he went back and he informed the citizens what had happened. They had a national period of mourning. And then the courtier said that we need a king, and Angad is too young right now. So you should become the king. He accepted that as a duty. And then one day, when he was on the throne, he heard thunderous footsteps charging towards his palace and his court. And then, before he could figure out what was happening, Vali burst in. His eyes were bloodshot. He was disheveled, and most striking was he was enraged, and he charged towards Sugriva and started beating him up. Vali had survived, but because it had taken a long time to search the demon, finally when he found the demon, he had focused on simply killing the demon. And normally he would roar in victory after killing the demon. But on this particular day he wanted to conserve his energy. So he did not. And when he came out, he saw that the cave had been covered. He says, how did this happen? He called out to Sugriv, there was no response. He thought, did they have some assistant? Did some demon trap me and kill Sugriv? This rock could not have come just exactly like this by nature. Great effort. He was able to push that rock aside and come out. And he saw outside there was no Sugriv, there was no sign of any struggle also. No scuffle, no struggle. So he thought, what has happened? And he started thinking, did Sugriv trap me there so that he could usurp the kingdom from me? And he came back and he saw Sugriv sitting on the throne. That just snapped it for him. He pounded on Sugriv. Now Sugriv wanted to speak to him, explain to him the situation. But Vali was so angry, he was not ready to hear even a single word that Sugriv was speaking. And seeing his anger and not wanting to fight back, Sugriv decided, let me leave him to tell my story another day. And he ran away. But unfortunately for Vali, the fact that Sugriv ran away confirmed his suspicion. If he had not been guilty, why would he have run away? And in that way, he condemned his brother. Now, unfortunately for him, what happened once that particular thought that my brother betrayed me got rooted in his mind, then his own wife Tara tried to tell him, no, actually it was a misunderstanding. Somebody told us that. The courtiers told him that. He said, you are all foolish. He says, Sugriv created that story. And you believed it? You thought a demon would be able to kill me? You do not know what my power is? So he started thinking that and Sugriv had betrayed him and Sugriv had tricked everyone else. And in that way, he just refused to listen to anyone else's story. And the more others tried to convince him, the more he became convinced that Sugriv was deadly deceptive. And he had made an elaborate hoax, elaborate deception scheme. And as I said, this Sugriv is such a betrayer. As long as he is alive, there will always be a threat for him. So then he set out on a mission to assassinate him. Tried to kill him. Just could not. So he ran all over the world, trying to find some hiding place. Wherever he went, Vali would come find him. And finally he found one place. It was right next to the Kishkinda kingdom. It was the place where Vali could not come because there's a curse from a demon. Curse from a sage, because of which he could not enter that area. That was the area of the Gandhamadhan Parvat. And there Sugriv stayed. Now this even more angered Vali. Because my enemy is here, right in front of me. But I cannot do anything to him. So Vali felt like about Sugriv, the way China feels about Taiwan. Right next to you, but you can't do anything about it. So, and this situation was there. He said, I have to do something. I have to destroy him in some way or the other. So now if you look at it, look at these two incidents. We consider what Kaikeyi did to Ram. And we'll focus here on what Sugriv did to Vali. Now, of course, we can also look at what Vali did to Sugriv. But here, who was subjected to longer pain was Vali or Sugriv? Sugriv, yes. Right. Now, we could compare the other way, but let's keep it this way right now. I'm giving it for a particular reason. Because here, yes, Sugriv also subjected Vali to a pain. But if you consider these two things, we'll consider when we're discussing the situation, that when somebody hurts us, two things to consider is the impact. How much is the impact and what is the motive? So now, when we consider these two factors, so who was impacted more? Was Vali impacted more or Ram impacted more? Ram was impacted more. Why? Because here it was 14 years in exile. Now, there is no description in the Ramayana explicitly of how long Vali was in the cave. But it was some period. It might have been a few months, few weeks, few months, whatever it was, that he had to be in a cave. Now, some ways we could say that for Ram, at least he knew, I'm going to the exile and come back after that. Vali didn't know whether I'm going to be able to escape from it also, whether I'll be able to survive here. So we could say that it's not that simple. So generally, if we try to compare sufferings, it's not very easy. Because whoever is going through a suffering feels that their suffering is the worst. That's just the way the mind is. But still we can objectively compare. You know, we lose a job, that's terrible. But say somebody in Ukraine is rendered homeless, not just jobless but homeless, but they have to go and be a refugee in some other country. Now, objectively, their suffering is far greater than ours. So there is some objective level. At objective level, Ram's suffering was certainly much longer than Vali's suffering. Now, in terms of motive, whose motive was worse? We could say that there was, Kaikeyi's motive was, she wanted the kingdom. She wanted it for her son, but clearly it was agenda driven. So, it was, what Kaikeyi did was a conspiracy. Whereas what Sugriv did was a misunderstanding. What do you think is the difference between a misunderstanding and a conspiracy? Sorry, yeah, one second. Yeah?
Intentionally and unintentionally.
Misunderstanding is unintentional. Yeah, you could say it's, I'm not sure we should use the word unintentional. Maybe the word is circumstantial. Because of circumstances, misunderstandings come up. So sometimes the circumstances are such that we read a particular situation in a particular way. What about a conspiracy? Conspiracy is very carefully planned. It is intentional. But there might be a circumstantial element in it, but it cannot be called entirely circumstantial. It is intentional. So it's like we happen to be in a particular place, other person happens to be in a particular place, other person does something, and we think that it was done because of this. That is a misunderstanding. But that's almost entirely circumstantial. Whereas conspiracy is where we try to orchestrate and create the circumstances. So in that sense, we could say the motive was more negative over here. Negative more over here. It was less negative. And yet, where did the relationship become more bitter and where did it become less bitter? Yes. So here it became more bitter. Here it was less. So, in this sense, that means although the motive was not very bad, or not at all bad, you could say, and also the impact was not very lasting, but still the conflict led to a huge, almost lifelong bitterness. Only there's a deathbed reconciliation between the two of them. In this case, there was no bitterness. Maybe there was some anger on the side of Kaikeyi, but when Bharat came and spoke to her, things got resolved. So, what was the difference here? We'll talk about what Lord Ram was thinking, and then we'll try to see what we can learn from that. So, generally speaking, whenever there is any suffering, whenever some pain comes up in our life, now, quite often, a pain can go in many different ways, but generally, when pain comes, at the moment it feels very high and then it goes down. Now, of course, sometimes it's also possible that at that moment we don't feel anything at all. And afterwards start realizing, suppose we are insulted, maybe at that time we don't feel anything. But then 10 people come and tell you, what he spoke about you, what she spoke about you. Oh, so many people know about it, they start thinking, oh, this is serious. But generally speaking, in the moment, we feel this is terrible. How dare this person speak like this to me? How dare this person do like this? And now we all probably can think of something which somebody did. And at that time we felt it was unbearable, unacceptable, intolerable. But now we look at that situation and go, okay, it's not that big a deal. It is not that big a deal. So what happens is that when we are caught too much in the moment, then whatever happens in the moment, we maximize it, we escalate it. So one of the things that spirituality does is for us, if we get spiritual vision actually is not short-term vision. It is long-term vision. So it is material vision. Often material means that it is based on some material focus, material vision. So here often we treat life like a 100-meter sprint. If you win, you win. If you lost, you are lost. But here we treat life like a 100-mile marathon. So even if I fall back at one particular time, it's not the end of the world. So in general, the more short-term our vision, the more whatever happens right now, we seem to escalate that. But the more long-term our vision, okay, this is bad, but there are other things also important in life. Now, I don't have to make all my decisions simply based on how I'm feeling right now. So it's very important for us to broaden this perspective. And that was constantly Lord Ram's focus. Now, when he was consoling Kaushalya, Kaushalya said to her that please, I cannot stay in this kingdom. If Kaikeyi has so much control over Dashrath now, by exiling you, he has abandoned me also. I cannot stay here. Please take me with you in the forest. And what Lord Ram did? He said, well, this is the time when my father needs you the most. He said, I was with him and he feels utterly betrayed by Kaikeyi. She was very dear to him, but when she made such a demand, it shattered his heart. This is the time when he is utterly betrayed. And as far as I am concerned, 14 years will pass just like 14 days. And soon I'll be back. And we'll be happy together. 14 years will not go to pass like 14 days. It's a long time. But Lord Ram was seeing the big picture. So now, for Wali, he could have at least given Sugriv the benefit of the doubt. That he could have called Sugriv Why did you do that? What were you thinking? Sugriva had served him and served with him lifelong. And he was stronger than Sugriva. It was not that when the two of them there would be there, Sugriva would spring an attack on him and kill him. At least if he had done that, he would have talked with him and said, okay, what was going on in your life? But you did like this, and therefore you deserve to be punished. So what happens is sometimes we take one action, and based on that one action, we just move forward and take a big decision. So, spiritual vision, what it does is, it helps us to get a bigger picture of situations. Another way to understand this is that in our case, there are three things. There are situations. Then from situations come emotions. We are supposed to meet someone at a particular time, and we reach there in time, but the other person doesn't come. That situation comes up where our time is wasted, or it's up to something critical and we're not able to do it. So that creates some emotion, anger or whatever. And based on that emotion, we make decisions. So now, this is a broad chain by which we work. Situations, you could put another way is that the soul is here, the mind is here, the body is here. And if you consider this is the self, and this is the outer world. So now situations come to us. Then they trigger some emotions inside us. Emotions come in the mind. And when those emotions come from those situations, they trigger some decisions from our side. Okay? So from the Jnanendriyas, we take in the situation. Then with the mana, there is some emotions that come in the mana. And then with the karmendriyas, with our actions, we take a decision. So the fact of life is that situations are reversible. Reversible means that today one person will treat us very badly, and tomorrow that person will treat us very well. People also have minds, their minds also have moods. Situations are reversible. Life has downs, but life also has ups. And we'll see our emotions are also reversed. Today I may feel I don't even want to look at the face of this person. But tomorrow we may not feel that much anger. Maybe day after tomorrow, we may remember all the happy times we had with that person. So our situations are reversible, our emotions are reversible. But unfortunately, if we take decisions, the decisions can be irreversible. So if the decisions are irreversible, then it can ruin a relationship, it can ruin a life. So for example, sometimes people get depressed. We all might, things will go wrong in our life. This thing goes wrong, that thing goes wrong, we all feel depressed. But supposing somebody feels depressed, they decide what is the point of living. And they try to end their life. And that is a irreversible decision. If you just hold on, don't overreact like that, things may become better. We ourselves may also feel better. So, now, when Vali decided to attack Sugriva, beat him up, there's an understandable emotion. But when Vali decided that I am going to assassinate him, I am going to send people to kill him, that made things worse. And then, when Vali found that Sugriva is right here and I am not able to reach him, I have to hurt him. And the way he decided to hurt him was I will take his wife for myself. You know, in any relationship, there are certain boundaries which should never be crossed. And if certain boundaries are crossed, then there is no going back thereafter. So we all may get angry, but we all understand at times that some decisions if I take, it's going to be irreversible. So what our spirituality does is that it creates barriers over here. That first barrier is over here. That means because of the reversible situations, the emotions will not come that strongly within us. But even if the emotions come, we won't get that. I talked about the long-term perspective we have. And what happens is, this is not that big a thing. Situation, this is not the end of the world. This will come, this will go. Tam Siddhiksha Svabhata. So the emotions don't become that severe. And even if the emotions become that much severe, still, okay, I'm not going to act on those actions. So both of these barriers come if we grow spiritually. So the impact, so I was talking about two things, the impact and the motive. So how much a situation hurts us, that's the impact. So if we don't have a spiritual perspective, then the impact becomes much, much more on us. And if we consider the motive of the other person, this is a terrible person, this person is cruel, this person is wicked, then the problem with materialism, as contrasted with spirituality, is that we tend to excuse our own mistakes. We say that my mistakes are because of circumstances, and others' mistakes are because of their character. So this is how unfortunate. If I yell at someone, it is because I was under a lot of stress. If somebody yells at me, this short-tempered person. So this is the nature of the conditioned mind or the conditioned ego. We ascribe the best reason for our explanation, and we ascribe the worst reason for the other person's explanation, other person's behavior. And this is unhealthy. But when we start practicing spirituality, what happens, at least what should happen is, when we practice bhakti, we understand just as I have a mind, others also have a mind. Just as I have bad days, others also have bad days. Just as I do things which I regret, others will also do things that they regret. Krishna says, Atma upamyena sarvatra samam pashyati arjuna. Sukham va yadi va dukkham sayogi paramo matah. Atma upamyena sarvatra. We understand just as I am Atma, others also are. Just as I am caught in a body-mind machine, they are also caught in a body-mind machine. So, we are able to, so the first barrier, I'll elaborate on these two barriers, and then we will conclude with a couple of points. So when we say a barrier, how can we ensure that situations don't trigger too much emotion within us? And even if emotions are triggered, we don't go into actions. So that is where these two barriers. What does barrier mean over here? There are two distinct things over here. There is detachment and there is discipline. Sometimes these two are said to be interchangeable, they are not exactly interchangeable. Detachment means is that our emotions are not so caught in something. Another way to understand is non-attachment. So by our spiritual practice, by our bhakti, our spirituality, what it does is, as we connect with Krishna, as we practice bhakti, for us, Krishna becomes bigger. Okay, is this very visible? Yeah. What happens for us is, initially for us, the world is very big and Krishna is small. But as we practice bhakti and grow, through our spiritual growth, the world becomes smaller and Krishna becomes bigger. So, when the world becomes smaller, the emotions triggered by the situation in the world also become small. If the world is big, then what happens is on top of it, my mind makes the ups and downs even bigger. But if the world itself has become smaller, then the ups and downs also become smaller. So this is how the emotions that come upon us, this detachment happens. And the emotional impact of those becomes lesser for us. And then, so Krishna talks about this as Abhyasena tu kaunteya vairagya jiguriyate. So this is vairagya. When this detachment, it is not that my whole life and my self-worth and my identity is determined by whether this person respects me or not. So many times people, when we get angry, if somebody disrespects us, it is not just because that person has disrespected me, it's because my whole sense of self-worth is dependent on whether others respect me or not. And then if somebody doesn't respect me, then I feel completely shaken. It is people who don't respect themselves get most angry when others don't respect them. If there is a healthy sense of self-respect, I understand I am a soul, I am a part of God, and God is always going to be there in my heart. Sarvasya chapam hridisandishtam. Each one of us is a precious, beloved part of Krishna. Then, even if people don't respect us, I have my self-worth. I have my relationship with Krishna. That security that comes in, that helps us to not overreact in terms of getting too affected by the emotions created by the situations. So, a detachment comes as Krishna, as the world becomes smaller. So, the world becoming smaller, that leads to detachment. Now, as Krishna becomes bigger, that leads to discipline. The discipline, abhyasena tu kaunteya. What does discipline mean in this context? If Krishna is bigger for us, then our primary thought is, okay, how can I serve Krishna in this situation? Our primary thought is not, this person did this to me, therefore I have to do this to this person. That maybe, I don't know enough about the situation. Maybe, see, we all have our bad moments. We wouldn't want others to judge us based on our bad moments or our worst moments. So, just as Krishna overlooks, Krishna knows all our bad moments. But Krishna doesn't hold them against us. So for us, what happens? This is illustrated in a slightly different way. That if I am here and you are here, you did something to me, so I should do something to you. This is one way of looking at it. And when we assume the motive, you really wanted to hurt me, you did this, not because of circumstances, but because you wanted to hurt me, then I'll get back at you, I'll destroy you. But if we understand that I am here, you are there, but Krishna is here above, then what happens is, my focus is not, you did this to me, so my focus is, what would Krishna want me to do? How can I best serve Krishna in this situation? And now that does not mean that I will not do something to you. But at least let me think about that. So my actions become not just a function of your actions or the emotions triggered by your actions. My actions become a function of my principles. My principle is that I will act in a way that will be of service to Krishna. And sometimes that may mean taking strong action against that person. But many times it may mean it's not that big a thing. I don't have to assume the worst about the person. Now sometimes the person keeps doing the same thing again and again repeatedly. That may be the only conclusion that is possible, that this person actually wants to hurt me. But it may not always be like that. So, one of the things that happens when a devotee practices bhakti is the tendency to find faults in others decreases. Or rather, the tendency to assume the worst about others decreases. So that's how that discipline comes in. So our actions, so from our actions they come, they are not impelled, they arise not so much from our emotions, which we discussed, are coming from our situation. That means others' actions. But while these are important, our actions are shaped by our principles. We cannot neglect our emotions, but our principles become more important for us. So, what is the best way I can serve Krishna in this situation? So, Lord Ram in that context was thinking, okay, this terrible thing has happened, but how can I keep my family together? How can I ensure that this bad situation doesn't become worse? And he felt that when Lakshmana was angry with Kaikeyi, Ram said that this is Kaikeyi's love for me was always like the Ganga's water flowing towards me, towards the ocean. It was pure, unceasing. So don't blame her. Lakshmana was angry and Lakshmana said, that's what I can't understand. How did the Ganga dry up in one night? And that's when Lord Ram replied that when something as inexplicable as this happens, I see it as the will of destiny. There is something more going on. It is not just this person. Suddenly one day this person has turned into a bad person and doing something terrible. There is something much deeper going on. So rather than holding her responsible and becoming bitter, he saw this is the will of destiny. And it was a bad phase that Kaikeyi was going through. And that phase ended when Bharat came back and chastised her. What have you done? What have you done? And she came back to her senses. So, rather than assuming the worst about the other person, just give them the benefit of the doubt. And let's wait and watch. So these two principles can ensure that we don't make bad situations worse. The situations are bad, there's no denying that. But if we don't make it worse, we at least open the possibility to make them better. And it's up to the other person's repeated actions whether they'll become better or not. But ultimately, this is how our spirituality can help us to make things better. We can try to make things better, or if at least we can't make things better, at least we ensure that we are not making things worse. So I'll summarize what I discussed today. Our topic was about suffering and pain. When we face suffering, especially suffering caused by others, when we face suffering from others, how do we deal with it? So I talked about two main stories. Discuss the story of who? Kaikeyi and Ram. Yeah, it was Sugriv and Vali, correct. Sugriv and Vali. So we discussed normally when we consider suffering that we feel is based on not just what happened, the incident that happened, but also how much was the impact of the incident on us and what we think was the intent of the other person in doing that thing. So if we consider in this situation, the impact was less. The impact was less short-lived. For Ram, the impact was more. And the intent in the case of Sugriv was also less. And it was more negative. We talk about negative for Kaikeyi. And yet, what happened was, here, if we consider the rupture of the relationship, the rupture was greater here, was more here, and less here. So why is that? And that's what we try to analyze. And we discussed how our spirituality can help us to ensure that our impact is less, we are impacted less by it, and our reaction, we ascribe less negative motive. So here we discussed about how there are situations in our life, and situations trigger emotions, and from emotions come decisions. So it's like here the outer world is there, from outer world situations come, then inside we experience some emotions, and from here we make some decisions. Situations can be reversible, emotions can also be reversible, but what happens to the decisions? Decisions can be irreversible. And that's why we want to be careful about how we act. So we try to create barriers at these two places. So here the barrier is in the form of detachment. Here it is in the form of discipline. So we discussed how these two barriers can come up through our spiritual practice. That detachment comes for us when we understand that actually the world is not that big. What happens in the world, it comes and goes for us. When the world becomes smaller and Krishna becomes bigger. And what happens if the world is smaller, then we don't see every situation in our life. We don't see life itself like a marathon. We don't see life like a sprint. If I lose, I lose and everything is lost. We start seeing life like a marathon. In the world, many things will come and go. So I don't have to take every situation that seriously. And when God becomes bigger for us, it helps us to see that when I am going to act, it is not just based on what the other person has done, but it's also based on my considering how I can best serve Krishna in this situation. And that enables us to give others the benefit of the doubt. Let's wait and watch to see if this person is actually as bad as I am thinking it to be. Or maybe it's not as bad. And that way, we can try to make bad situations less bad instead of worse. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there any quick question or comment? Yes, please.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. I have attended around 5 classes this week, and each class is unique in its own way, because you have taught us in various acronyms and examples which fit the situation, and obviously the diagrams as well. So it is very crystal clear to us. It is easy to follow and practice also. My question is regarding these difficult times. So during difficult times, we tend to overthink, in fact, mostly negatively about the situation. So sometimes even the problem has not come to us, but we have started thinking that negatively of this such situation will come to us. So that thinking itself creates a problem. So my question is it natural to think about the problems so profusely about the problem either negatively or positively? And what is the way to minimize this overthinking negatively about the problem? Is there any magic formula to it?
Okay. So, if you're overthinking, imagining problems of the future, Is there a way to stop this, or is it required? Well, it depends. Since I was growing up, people around me would always tell me, you think too much. And I had a standard reply, you think too little. So, now is it subjective? Now, of course, I was not too much into worrying about things, but I like to analyze things. Okay, this person said this happened like this. And so I used to think a lot. So, over a period of time, I tried to analyze. So, when is that overthinking? When is it overthinking? So, broadly speaking, if we consider the time we spend thinking and the clarity we get. So, generally speaking, the more we think, the more clarity we get. Say, if the economy there's a big economic change, should we keep our money invested somewhere? Should we take it out? We think we'll get something more here or there, we get more clarity. So generally speaking, by thinking, our clarity increases. However, this graph is not infinitely going upwards. After some time, we hit a plateau. Now, then we think, we just don't get any clarity. If we keep thinking further, actually we'll get more confused. So ideally speaking is, stop thinking over here. Beyond this, it's overthinking. And beyond this, it's definitely overthinking. So till this point, thinking is productive. Here it becomes unproductive. From here it becomes counterproductive. So we could say this is sattva. Sattvat sanjayate jnanam. Here it becomes rajas. And here it becomes tamas. So now it is best. Now we all have our particular minds. We can't change that immediately. Some people they don't think enough, and so we will tell them, have you thought this through? What you're doing? This new scheme has come up, you want to invest all your money in that thing. So you're more careful about it. Don't invest everything over here. So some people need to think more. Some of us may need to think less. So the basis for deciding it is, what is the result of the thinking? Is the result of the thinking increasing my clarity, or is it decreasing my clarity? Is it increasing my confidence and my energy, or is it decreasing my confidence and energy? Now we humans have the capacity to look at the future and to anticipate what can happen in the future. And that has to be utilized. So foreseeing the future is a good thing. Planning for the future is a good thing. But when is it leading us to becoming prepared, or when is it leading us to become paralyzed? So that is something which we have to evaluate ourselves. And if we find that it is leading us to become paralyzed, then that is the time we can't stop overthinking itself, but we can start shifting our thinking. Give ourselves something else to think about. Get busy in something. Focus on the present. And that's why chanting Hare Krishna, for example, is an engagement for the mind. So if we give our mind some productive engagement, then it will not be that agitated by other things. Okay? Any other quick question? Yes, please.
We have looked into the situations. Now, in our personal life, we also go through many situations. Now, how this suppression of emotion by means of meditation, by means of mindfulness or heartfulness that we have been exposed to or hear about, how that, how to understand that? Will that work or not work in terms of spiritualization?
See, I'm not talking about spiritualization at this stage. I'm just talking about non-attachment or decreased attachment. Now, for all of us, it will work, but it may work to different degrees in different areas. So, for example, somebody is a little interested in politics, and then they start practicing bhakti, then they get detached. Not that you want to be ignorant, but they're not constantly, oh, this person did this, that person did that, not constantly infatuated. But suppose we were very interested in movies, or we were very interested in cricket. Now, maybe there, getting detachment will take some time. So, when I say the world becomes smaller and Krishna becomes bigger, it is not that every aspect of the world will become smaller at the same speed. Some may take more time, some may take less time. So we need to see which aspects bhakti is working for us, which aspects is not working. If it's not working, it could be because we are still exposing ourselves to that a lot, or maybe the conditionings are more, that will require more time. So be aware of where it is not working. So, or where the change has not yet happened, so that we are prepared, we are not ambushed by the emotions coming that way. But don't base your faith, let's not base our faith in Krishna and the potency of bhakti based on only the areas where it's not working. So we are taking a treatment and say we've got arthritis all over our body. And we feel arthritic pain in 10 areas, we felt arthritic pain in 10 areas of our body. And in 6 areas it has gone, 4 areas it's remaining. So if we look at the area where it's remaining, we'll think the treatment is not working at all. But you have to be fair in evaluation to see which areas it's working. And similarly, bhakti parishanubhava virakti. Bhakti will lead to detachment, but in some areas the impact will be faster, some areas it will be slow.